Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council regular meeting for Monday, August the 22nd, 2022. I will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad, absent. Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Forster.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Councilmember Wills.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Before we rise for the pledge tonight, I'd ask that you please observe a moment of silence with me for Terry Thornton. Mr. Terry passed away at his home in Raymore this past week, and he was, as Mr. Feuerborn eloquently said, he was a part-time worker for our Parks and Recreation Department. His face has for years been familiar to children, parents, guardians, grandparents, and everyone as he worked as a field supervisor for our recreations programs. In his words and actions, he taught fair play and fun. He taught responsibility to our young officials and students of the sport. I never saw him without a smile on his face. And I know that children at Timber Creek are missing him greatly at this point too, as he was a fixture over there as well. So if you'd please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, will you please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It wouldn't get there. All right. We have no presentations and awards this evening or personal appearances, so move on to staff reports. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report for the Public Works Department.
Thank you, Mr. Feuerborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to let everyone know that Public Works completed the water main repair on Elm Street earlier this afternoon. We still have to do some street repairs there that will occur later this week, but will not require as much of a road closure as the water main repair needed. Also want to remind everyone that 155th Street in west of Kentucky is going to be closed this week. Belton is scheduling some extensive reconstruction work, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Krass? Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just had one question. I know it's not our jurisdiction, but you mentioned it. Are they just going to fix the areas, or is that going to be it doesn't sound like it's enough time to do a rebuild or anything, just fix the bad areas?
They're talking about a 2-week project, so I'm not sure. And they are saying reconstruction, so that, to me, that means removal of all the existing pavement and probably making some significant subgrade repairs.
Yeah, I know, right? Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Mr. Krass. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council. First of all, thank you for the moment of silence. Obviously, tough week for my staff last week, losing one of our own, and just want to praise my staff a little bit for last Friday night we had the mud run, and having been down a member, losing somebody, and then one is on maternity leave, we pulled off the biggest mud run that we've had yet. We've had over 300 runners registered. We had 25 volunteers this year move out and be on each of the sites. 15 full-time, part-time staff members worked this event, 4 sponsors, so and the weather was perfect. It rained in the morning, got everything nice and soggy for them, and then we let them have it. So it was a good event on Friday night. That event just continues to grow. Speaking of growth, my athletic coordinator, Todd Brennan, he's actually over at Centerview right now on a Zoom meeting scheduling soccer games, but he gave me some numbers as I was walking out the door. In comparison to last year for fall sports, last year we had 837 participants through baseball, volleyball, soccer, flag football, and tiny soccer. As of today, we have 968 participants registered, so that's awesome. 131 more players or athletes than we did last year. Also, in comparison, we usually do against the cities, mostly because we like to kind of give it to them when we're beating them pretty good. In terms of teams, through baseball, volleyball, soccer, flag football, we have 94 teams put together for all those sports. Right now, the next highest is Pleasant Hill at 44, and then Belton at 22. Harrisonville has 26, but I will say that Belton does not have their volleyball numbers in, so that could tweak it a little bit. But we're more than doubled on number of teams of the other cities around us. So my staffers doing a great job, and I can just praise them a lot. And finally, Melissa and I will be flying out on Sunday to Charlotte to meet up with our Public Works crew and receive our award for TV Hannah Station. So it's a big
congrats.
weekend for us there, too.
Yeah.
And that concludes my staff report.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. Any questions of Mr. Mustine? Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mustine, any idea what would be driving the increase in our numbers, and definitely from a team's perspective? Would you care to hazard what would be the
We're better than they are.
outstanding? Thank you. That's all I need to
We
hear.
provide, our facilities are good. I mean, I think we have dedicated staff that, we have some longevity in our staff, and there's some high turnover in other cities, and I think that plays a big difference in just having the trust, and parents call us and they know us, and I think that makes a big difference.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that the history of the programs have been extremely successful. You've recruited some great coaches. You've got a great organizational staff that helps put all of that together. And I know we have a blast out watching my grandson play soccer and flag football. And I mean, that they love their coaches. Kids love their coaches.
And I will say, I know that when a parent calls up and Greta can answer and know them by name, or Todd recognizes the kids when he's out in the field, that just makes a huge difference.
It really does. Anyone else? Any questions, Mr. Mustine? Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll forgive me, I'm a little congested and hard of hearing. You said 94 teams?
That is what is currently put together, ready to play this fall.
It's impressive on a standpoint of recruiting that many kids, but it's even more impressive that you have 94 or that many coaches to coach those teams in this day and age. That's a task in and of itself. So
Yes, it is, and I will recognize some of those coaches that take multiple teams.
Okay.
And some of my staff take on teams in their own time volunteering too. So it's always a challenge to find that many coaches, and we have to get creative. But yes, you're absolutely right. That's a lot of coaching.
Yep, very good. Thank you for your humility tonight, sir. Appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. I would ask Ms. Harmer to make a report for communications.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. The Arts Commission is excited about their joint meeting with you on the 29th. I met today with our new Ward 4 Arts Commissioner, Wesley Anderson. So he's excited to be part of the Arts Commission, so you'll be meeting him for the first time, too, next week. The review, the fall issue of the review is in Mr. Fearborn's hands. I'm waiting on final approval from him before I send it to the printer. So it should be in everybody's Raymore mailbox, available here at City Hall within 2 to 3 weeks. So shortly after Labor Day, I think. And then back to the Arts Commission. The Arts Commission has 2 final concerts scheduled at the amphitheater. September 1st at 7 p.m. is the Middle Ground Band, which is a rock cover band, local members from Raymore. And then September 30th is a Friday. We have 2 bands. It's kind of our final event of the season, so hopefully the weather's great. Country band, Clay Clear Band, and then the bluegrass band that if anybody was at Summer Scene 2 summers ago, you might have seen them, the Amaruji Ridge Runners. So that should be a fun evening, so please put those 2 dates on your calendar, and that's all I have this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harmer. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a report on the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council. As you all know, we're just a few weeks out from the community conversations at this point, which was the last milestone I think I reported to you all in terms of what me and my department were kind of waiting on for the next phase of the comprehensive plan. So right now we're waiting within the next couple of weeks, hopefully after Labor Day, would be the final report from KU on that community conversation, which is what my staff will use to kind of formulate some of the goals and the language that goes into the comprehensive plan, so it's reflective of the public engagement that we've been conducting. In the meantime, though, Mr. Everett and I have been hard at work doing some of the, I would say, the miscellaneous information, so the demographics for the community, the history of the community, and the stuff that we can write necessarily without the direct input of the community, so the kind of the meat and potatoes of that plan, I guess, if you will. In addition to some of just the smaller minor updates that we've discussed with the Planning Commission at this point, some of the alterations to the existing growth management plan we've been working on as well. In the meantime, I also wanted to just throw it back out there. If you'll recall, I tried to demonstrate it at the community conversation, but it was quite loud, and people were kind of up taking a break. But the online engagement tool that our GIS coordinator created that's been useful up until this point, but the usage of it has been pretty slim. And so working with Melissa, I know there'll be a short article about it in the review coming up, but we've been trying to get that tool out and about. And so anytime that you're chatting with somebody in your ward or in the community that maybe wasn't able to make it to the community conversation or wants to do just a little bit more, try and direct them towards that. If you just visit raymore.com/community, there's a link right there. I can always forward a link to your emails if you'd prefer that and send it out that way. But the community conversation was a huge piece of that plan, but more engagement, the better, the more details we can put into that plan. So we'll continue to work on some of that background info over the next couple weeks until we can kind of hit the ground running with that report. But in the meantime, I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you, David. Anyone? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. Just a reminder to the council, we do have a work session, as I've been preempted on, next Monday night. Two topics, really, the joint meeting with the Arts Commission, and then discussion of budget, as we will for every work session until you vote on the final budget. That concludes staff reports tonight, sir.
Thank you, sir. We know who you are, David. It's all good. You said Mr. Mustine.
Oh,
That's all right. You got a
I
lot of-
apologize, Mr. Grass.
I have been called worse in my lifetime, so.
It was Mr. Mustine because he's better.
Oh, that's his claim anyway. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of that item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the consent agenda item A, City Council minutes for August 8th, 2022.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3739 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3739 by title only, an ordinance pursuant to Section 67.110 of the revised statutes of Missouri, levying general and special taxes in the city of Raymore, Missouri for the year 2022.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3739, setting the 2022 tax levy.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3739. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3741 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3741 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, vacating all easement rights, including 2 sewer line easements and related sewer line temporary construction easements located within the Raymore Galleria development, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3741, Raymore Galleria easement vacation.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3741. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3743 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3743 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the taxable industrial revenue bonds, KCI Raymore Phase 3 LLC project, Series 2022, related to an industrial development project in the city and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3743, Raymore Commerce Center Building 2, Chapter 100 bond issuance.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3743. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3740 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3740 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Oak Ridge Farms fourth final plat, lots 58 through 60, located south of West Pine Street, east of North Madison Street in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3740, Oak Ridge Farms fourth final plat.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3740. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3738 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3738 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Ridgeview Estates first final plat, a subdivision of land located in the east half of Section 19, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3738, Ridgeview Estates final plat, lots 1 and 2.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3738. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3742 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3742 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, directing the mayor to execute the First Amendment to the Good Ranch Master Development Agreement dated October 14, 2014, including the ranch lease incorporated therein.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3742, Good Ranch Development Agreement First Amendment.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3742. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3744 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3744 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, declaring the results of the August 2, 2022 election.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3744, declaring August 2nd, 2022 election results.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3744. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those, oops, Ms. Abdelgawad, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I just want to take a minute. I know in the last couple of weeks I've heard some comments that council members have made about this vote failing, and we've had several, it was a downer for it to fail, but I do want to take a minute just to recognize the 2,138 people who did vote for this. And I've heard that a lot in the last couple of weeks. I voted for it, you know. So we do have a lot of people in support of it, and I just want to take a minute and thank them for supporting that, even though it didn't pass.
Good point.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3745 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3745 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Section 300.020 and Chapter 341 of the Raymore City Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3745, amending the City Code, Chapter 341, Operations of Neighborhood Vehicles on Public Streets.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3745. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3746 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3746 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Chapter 205 of the Raymore City Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve Bill 3746, amending City Code, Chapter 205, Animal Control.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3746. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3747 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3747 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Section 280.020 of the Raymore City Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve Bill 3747, amending City Code, Section 280.020, acts declared as public nuisances.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3747. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. That concludes old business. We'll now move on to new business. Under the one item we have this evening, we have a request for reconsideration of the effective date of Resolution 22-22. I will yield the floor to Councilmember Townsend at this time.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I motion that we reconsider Resolution 22-22 for amendment of the effective date.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, for purposes of discussion, I will second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded for reconsideration of the effective date of Resolution 22-22. Any further discussion?
No, it's not. It's just, there's no packet for this.
Yeah, there's nothing written on that. It's just a, okay. You can discuss it if you wish.
Sorry, I was just asking if I missed when we were changing, like if the time's changing now or...
That's the next.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
amendment.
I'll wait.
Yeah. Anybody else? If not, I'd entertain a motion for reconsideration then.
That motion, Your Honor.
Oh, for reconsideration, that's right. We're taking it off the table, basically.
And we're voting
Okay,
now.
all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Motion does, is there a yes or no?
If I could have the motion reread, because there was a little bit of confusion on my part.
Sure.
The motion was to reconsider the Resolution 22-22 to amend the effective date.
And is there an effective date listed?
We're just
or
discussing the
We're
reconsideration
just discussing
point.
it. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Bringing it up
thank
for
you.
reconsideration.
Thank you.
Okay. And so was that a yes? Okay. So the motion carries unanimously for reconsideration. We'll now open it up for discussion and/or motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I motion that we reinstate Resolution 22-22 with an amended effective date of January 1, 2023.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, for purposes of discussion, I will second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to amend Resolution 22-22 to the effective date of January 1, 2023. Any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Wills.
Sorry, I don't know how to go about asking to suggest a different date.
You can make an amendment to the motion.
So can I make an amendment to the motion
Yes.
to have the date effective of the election, of the upcoming election 2023?
Probably be better if you had
A specific date?
Are you making a motion to amend in order to change the date that's been suggested in the underlying motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion to amend the pending motion, altering the date to whatever you're suggesting.
To the,
I think it'd be best to have an actual date.
to April
April
So
4th.
maybe April 10th? Effective of April 10th?
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second to the amended motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to amend the original motion from January 1st, 2023 to April the 14th, or April 10th? April 10th, 2023. Any further discussion on that motion to amend? Mr. Berenson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll quickly point out that we as a council chose Councilmember Wills to fill a vacancy. When we chose Councilmember Wills, that time was set at 7 o'clock. And I think it's fair, you know, she accepted this position willingly and has been here at every meeting that I can recall. I think it's fair to keep that agreement at 7 o'clock. I know that there was never any agreement that we wouldn't change the time, but she did accept that based on the time that we were currently meeting. So I think we should give her some leeway, and maybe others up here whose livelihoods and schedules that we're affecting. So I support us pushing this back from January 1st to the date of the election. My 2 cents on the matter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes. Ms. Forster?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I hear why the 1st versus the 4th? Is that okay?
Sure. Would you care to elaborate?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Townsend?
Mayor. I thank staff and the mayor for allowing me to have this motion reconsidered, this resolution reconsidered. When it was passed at the initial reading back on August the 8th, there's great debate, good discussion on, you know, start times, but in the intervening weeks, had several conversations with different council members, and it was not ever the intent of the mayor's initial request and the prevailing vote to adversely impact any council member's ability to serve the office they were elected to, nor the staff, as we had indicated during the discussion, in support of staff. So the January date was chosen based on discussions with those I've had conversations with, seemed to be the most amenable date that would give time for all parties involved to adjust to the scheduled time change, as well as allowing, you know, all things to kind of work itself in a more orderly fashion as opposed to immediately. So that was the discussion that I've had with those, and the reason I thought to bring it up for reconsideration, to put it to January to allow ample time, allow additional time to make the necessary adjustments to the start.
Anyone else? Mr. Holman?
Thank you, sir. I offered this up during the discussion phase when we voted on it. I said we could go with November 1st. No one took me up on that. There was no discussion about this whatsoever. I had not heard anything beyond the January 1st date on this. This has sprung on me tonight. That's why I made my second specific for discussion purposes. I'm still not hearing any reasoning why we're going to that, and that seems like a very politicized reason. And I understand the reason for the ask, but this has been bounced around, and I've received no information on it. I can't support the amendment. I can support the original motion.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdelgawad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to share that I made my point clear last time. I'm not in favor of changing it at all, honestly, but if we're going to change it, to me, it makes sense to change it after the election date. To an extent, it was like we're changing the rules in the middle of the game. You know, we all signed up for this position. We were elected to this position with the meeting being at 7 o'clock. Knowing that changing the meeting can affect people's ability to maintain this position that they've been elected into by the people, that's enough for me to say, as a council, we should reconsider that. You know, the people of the city chose those of us to be here, and if changing the meeting would mean that someone who has been elected is going to have to step away from that position, then I think that's enough reason that we need to keep it the same until there's an opportunity for another election.
Okay. Ms. Wills?
Thank you, sir. I don't necessarily know that this is appropriate for me to make it solely about myself in this fact, but there's a solid chance that I wouldn't have run for this seat had I known that the time would have been at 6 o'clock. My scheduled hours of being able to work are only in the evening, so this affects my income. And while I definitely want to be a part of our city and our community and help to continue to make it grow, this affects me more than it does people with a different position or a different job. So I'm asking until the election, because then it's less time, because then at that time I can decide if I need to rerun for a seat or not, basically. So, thank you.
Mr. Barber?
I would just add to the discussion that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all of our other boards and commissions have switched to the 6 p.m. start time. Is that correct?
Park Board and P&Z is taking it up at their next meeting.
Not yet, right?
Yeah, they're taking it up at their next meeting.
Any other discussion on the amendment? So we'll be voting on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment?
Can you, I'm sorry.
The amended motion is to push it to April 10th,
Thank you, sir.
okay? To the April 10th date. So we'll just say that, the April 10th date. All those in favor of the motion? 4 yes? Those no? 4 no? I'll vote in favor of the amended motion, so the date, I would vote on the April 10th date to amend the motion to then. Okay? So now we'll vote on the amendment of the amended, it's now amended to April 10th. I would enter, do we have a, yeah, we have a motion on the floor with the amendment to the April 10th date. Correct? Okay. All those in favor of that motion? No? Those no? So I have 6 yes and 2 no's. Motion carries for the April 10th date. So our effective date of resolution 2022 will be April 10, 2023. Okay? Everybody got any questions about that? Okay? I will now move on to public comments. If there's anyone from the public that wish to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one coming forward, so we'll move on to mayor council communication. Mr. Barber, I'll start over there with you again.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate that. Mr. Mustine, I can remember, I kind of aged myself here, but I remember Sears and Roebuck used to have all their stuff that they sold. They had good, better, best. And I think our Parks Department is achieving the best. Appreciate your hard work. I think, again, I think like Councilman Bergensen said, I think you're kind of selling yourself short. When you have that many teams, I think you didn't say no to anything, and you just made it happen. And I do really appreciate that, and I know the youngsters and the parents and the citizens of Raymore appreciate that as well. So keep up the good work, and thank you.
Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start off with thanking Jim Fairborn and his senior staff for having the vision. If you watched our work session we had last week, one of the things we talked about in the budget was some significant bonuses for both recruiting and retention of personnel, and it's not hard to see what's around the corner with everybody having trouble finding help and retaining employees. So these bonuses are significant, and we're one of the first in the community to do so. So good for you all for being trailblazers and doing that, and showing the staff that they are truly what counts, and they're very important. Secondly, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having the moment of silence for Mr. Terry Thornton. My youngest daughter played sports, it seems like every Saturday at Rec Park, and I got to know Terry pretty well. He is, I tease you, Nathan, you're a wonderful man, and you're very humble. But Terry, a very, very humble person, just in getting to know him, I had no idea of all the things that he did and the time he spent volunteering. He was a part-time volunteer employee with us, but he had a full-time heart for this community. So thank you for the moment of silence, and thank you to Terry's family for sharing him with us for so long. He will be missed. Thank you.
Mr. Townsend.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I can't add anything more than what has been said. If anything, I'll mess up and just leave something out, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to say great job on the mini mud run to the whole Parks Department. I've been inundated with people with pictures and the great time they had, and so even with the smaller staff and with everyone had a blast. So great job. I also wanted to thank the police department. I actually had an incident happen near our shop, and I believe now some of our citizens think our cops are Superman because they came so fast and handled the situation great and coordinated with Belton and everything. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. That's all.
Thanks. And I'll jump over to you, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is kind of a personal ask, not from the district, not from the city, but if you are a parent driving your child to the high school or the middle schools or some other schools, and you have a larger vehicle, call up a neighbor and say, hey, let's take our kids to school today. It's cool to take them, but several families could be in the same vehicle, and it was very difficult for anyone to approach the school in any direction today because there were so many parents, and it's exciting. It was real exciting to say good morning to so many people this morning as I did duty, but there were, every single car had two people in it, just about. And it would be real helpful if we could, carpool, or, I know you don't want to miss out on your kid going, but two parents from different families could ride with different families together, and it might really help everybody in the safety department. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Ullman.
I yield my time, sir.
All right. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of following along the line that Mr. Burke started, I just wanted to kind of welcome our staff back to school and just share with everybody that quick reminder that we do have buses, we have kids by the side of the road, we have kids walking to school, getting off buses, and just a reminder to drive safely around our schools. I know the police department's doing extra efforts to help be sure everybody stays safe, and so just a reminder to the community to be thinking about the little ones that are back to school today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wills.
Thank you, sir. I also kind of wanted to talk about the mud run. I think those numbers that we talked about earlier are amazing. 300 runners, that's insane. So congratulations on another successful event. And I know that that particular event is a community favorite. So thank you to the staff and the volunteers that made it such a special day for the kids. So thank you.
Thank you. And I want to just make a shout out to Ms. Forster. I know she's posted on Facebook, so I guess it's okay for us to say she is with child, and we're so thankful that that's happened to her in her life, because I know we've had a discussion, and she didn't know it could happen, but it did. And it's got to be an exciting time for you and David. Congratulations. Wish you the best of health and all the success in the world with that, because kids are awesome. And then thank you again to Nathan for everything with the parks. I know we went out there the other day. I had my 10-year-old grandson, and we went out to one of the ball fields there during the day, and no one was around, but the field was in great shape, and I made him shag balls, and it was pretty fun. I wish he lived out here. He actually lives up north of the river, my 10-year-old. I wish he lived out here to take advantage of the programs here, because they're just so well run here. I've gone up there to Liberty and been part of that process up there, and they do a good job, but things just go so good here in our town. I'm still trying to coax them to move here.
Because we're better.
Well, that's what Nathan says. And we'll get him here someday. And that's all I have. I do know that we need to go into executive session, so I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Townsend.
Before I make the motion, I believe it's already been joked about, but Ms. Forrester, congratulations, but that's not a requirement for the rest of us to add to the population? Okay, cool. Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session to discuss this litigation, real estate acquisition, and personnel matters as authorized by revised Missouri statute 610.021, subparagraph 1, subparagraph 2, subparagraph 3.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Forster?
Yes?
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills?
Yes.
We have a quorum. We'll now move into executive session, and when we're done with that, we'll come back out to open session